Hello, everyone. I am Nate Bauer. This is the Blue White Illustrated Penn State Hoops podcast, and as you guys know, we've been doing this for about a month now. We took a little bit of a leap of faith, starting a Penn State Hoops podcast, but we've found this to have a very enthusiastic audience who are just craving more and more coverage towards Penn State basketball. And I'm delighted to tell you that our guest today is a big reason for that. Head coach Micah Shrewsberry has a Penn State team that is now 7-3 on the season, coming off of a huge win over the weekend at Illinois. Welcome, Micah Shrewsberry. Micah.
Nate, this show just got a whole lot better. The ratings, the overall experience, whatever it may be, just went to a whole different level.
Astronomical. We are so glad to have the Shrewsberry bump happening to the show today. So much appreciated for you being here. Let's get right into it. You coming off this big win. You go to Illinois, and I mean, if I can just set the stage here a little bit, you got there late, right? Late departure on Friday. It's a tough place to win already. You laid that out there. They're coming off of a big win at Texas, or against Texas, I should say. And road games had been a little bit of a thing, right, for Penn State over the last 2 years. What happened? How did you feel like you were able to put it together?
I thought our guys really responded well after the Michigan State game. The next 2 days of practice were really good. Also challenged them a little bit with what we needed to do to play better on the road. And they really responded. Like, the Michigan State game is like, there's a couple of things about it. And, it wasn't like the one thing I don't think you can ever say is we don't play with effort. We played with incredible effort in that game. I didn't think we played with poise. I didn't think we played from an execution standpoint. Going back and watching, I needed to be better. There were things that a day or two after, when you go back and watch, in hindsight, I saw ways that I could be better. So we really talked about that. But it was a game where, like, you want something so bad, right, that, like, you overdo it. I thought we were almost too stressed, right? I felt like I coached that way as well, and I think they played off that. I wanted to try and flip it on the road and try to, keep us as loose as possible. You got to be on edge, but you got to be loose. And we played loose. We played with great poise, and the results showed that.
Are there things that you're learning on the fly as a coach? I mean, just that notion of kind of gauging the temperature of your team and getting them hyped and hot for that Michigan State game. I mean, is that something that you felt like you can use for yourself moving forward with this group?
Yeah, definitely. I think not just for this group. I think every group, you have to find what fits them, like what motivates them. How do you get ready? And, I went back and second guessed everything. I'm asking Greg, our strength coach, about the numbers in our practice. Like, can I look at the numbers of our practices and, like, did we overdo it in practice? Were we tired? Were we this? Were we that? And let's compare it to other lead ups to the game. So, you second guess everything. But sometimes it takes you a while to find it. And I thought we found it. But, another thing, it's human nature, right? We're still dealing with 18 to, you used to be able to say 18 to 22-year-old kids, but now you can't say that anymore, because now you're probably 18 to 26-year-old kids.
Yeah, 25.
But, like, sometimes sometimes college basketball and scheduling can come down to when you play somebody more than who you play.
Yeah.
And you play Michigan State coming off 2 losses, like how Tom Izzo's gonna bring these guys in here. You know what they're gonna be, right?
Yep.
Like Illinois is flying high. They just beat the number 2 team in the country in Madison Square Garden with all eyes on them. They ain't thinking about Penn State. I can tell you that right now. So, like, when you play somebody is really important, almost as much as who you're playing.
Yeah. Is it fair for me to characterize last year you have a little bit of a I'm not saying it's house money. You want to win, right? You're doing everything that you possibly can, but the expectations that you have internally for yourselves this year, has that helped produce a little bit of a buildup? I mean, is that something that you have to be aware of not getting too far ahead of yourselves, not getting carried away in terms of the team's mentality?
We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think as a group internally, just because we want to perform well. We some of these guys, this is their last shot, and college basketball comes down to that a lot. It goes fast, it goes quick. I tell these guys all the time, like, hey, guys, I'm gonna be here, right? Some of you guys, this might be your last crack at it. So, like, let's savor these moments. Every moment that we get together, let's savor this and let's do something special. I don't know what special is. I don't want to put a cap on what special is for this team or any team that we coach, but let's do something special. Let's accomplish something. Let's change. Let's leave with something, right? Or let's hang a banner somewhere. Let's have memories that people are always talking about, but let's do that together. And, it doesn't put pressure on you to say, hey, let's win this game at this moment, or look down the schedule and we have to win this, this, and this. Like, every game's important to us. And so I don't I don't put outside pressures on anything. Like, the one thing I'm always the ultimate underdog. So I can flip anything in any direction. Like, I have no problem telling our guys. I'm like, hey, listen, before the game, I'm like, nobody thinks we can win this game. I can tell you that right now. Like, not anybody in the media, not anybody. I was like, I don't even know if our own fans believe we can win this game, but I do. But I believe we can win it. So, and if you guys believe we can win it, that's enough.
Yeah. Let me. I want you to break down the winning formula for me a little bit, because it seems on its face that it's pretty straightforward, right? You've had the 3 worst shooting percentages of the season have been your 3 losses, right? And it's been pretty marked, right? Like, I mean, it's been a fairly distinct differential. Colorado State being the anomaly in terms of 3-point shooting, but there haven't been huge rebounding discrepancies, assist to turnovers. Like, that's a pretty, you see that number changing between your wins and your losses. Is it that simple in terms of how you want to win this year?
It's actually not.
Okay.
We're gonna make threes. We're gonna get a number of threes. We shoot a pretty high volume of threes. Now I haven't gone back to look at the Virginia Tech or the Clemson game, but you can probably look at Clemson. But like Michigan State, if you go back and look at it, like we shoot a bunch of threes. We don't live and die by 3. We shoot a bunch of threes. We live and die by the 2.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if we make layups against Michigan State, we win. It's not like, even if we shoot the same exact percentage from 3, like, don't miss layups. We miss layups in that game. We miss shots at the rim. So, like, we miss free throws. Like, that's the game. It wasn't the threes. We didn't shoot a high volume in the second half because of how they were guarding us. So we got the ball in the paint more. We need to make those. We need to make our free throws, and it's a totally different ball game. So no game is the same. No game is different. And, like, I don't, like, we're not just going to shoot threes at all costs. Like, we're going to take what the defense gives us. If people are going to take things away, then we're going to attack in some other way and try and beat you in that way. So we're not, like I said, we're not like one trick ponies. We can score in other ways. You know, it just so happens that those are the games that, you know, where we've missed shots. But if we make twos at a higher rate in that game, we probably win, you know, probably Clemson and Michigan State.
Yeah. Are you seeing an evolution? Like, I guess this is kind of big picture, but are you seeing an evolution of this team from November to now? Right. You had that stretch where you had 8 games in 23 days, right, in November. And now you're kind of in the middle of this period where you've got 5 over 30 games or 30 days, excuse me. Have you seen a shift? Have you seen the progress that you want to see over these last couple of months?
Yeah, I think there's still ways to get better. You know, you go back and you start watching the game, like, we didn't play particularly well against Illinois. Now, they'll do that to you just based on their style of play. Like, any semblance of offense that you try and play against anybody else, it has to go out the door against Illinois, because you got to play a completely different way based on how they guard, based on how they play. But there were things where I thought we were really sloppy, that, you know, if you play them again, you got to be better or you're getting beat, you know, because they might capitalize on them better the next game. So the hard part is playing all these different teams. You're playing different styles, and you have to constantly adjust. I think that'll help us, I think, once we get into Big Ten play, because we've played a bunch of different styles and systems, and people have attacked us in different ways and people have guarded us in different ways. So now we've seen, I mean, almost every pick and roll defense that people can play against us right now. Like, let's prepare more, you know, for post doubles or whatever they may do to try and stop Pickett down there in the post. But it'll be easy for us to adjust to what people are doing, right? So maybe, you know, it doesn't take, we all see it, right? Instead of me going back 2 days after Michigan State and like beating my, you know, banging my head with my fist of like, I should have done this. Right now, the next time somebody guards us like that, I know exactly how we should do it right away. Like, I know what we should go to counteract that. If people guard us, if they hard hedge, I know how we should counteract that, like, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You know, obviously you've gotten to this point where you've got a couple of days break here, not break, but a couple of days off right before you get back into it to close out December finals week. How important are these games, right? Because people are going to look at the KenPom numbers or just, you know, perception and see 3 teams that are lesser than. How important is this development and being able to get through these games unscathed before you get back into Big Ten play?
I think they're really important, because if you look at, you know, I follow John Rothstein on Twitter, and every night John Rothstein tweets, such and such just lost to such and such in a bye game, whatever it is, the epitome of brutality or whatever he puts at the end of that. Like, people get beat. You get beat every night when you don't play the way you're supposed to, when you don't handle your business in games where it looks like it's easy. No game is easy. No game is easy. We're not a team, like, we're not to the point right now where we can just physically overwhelm you or athletically overwhelm you in a game like this, where it's like, hey, we're just going to out athlete you and we're going to win by 35, right? You know, be up 32 at halftime. Like, we're not at that point right now. So we got to execute. We got to guard people. Everything matters for us right now. Hopefully in the next, you know, few years with recruiting and such, like, you don't have to play your best. You could just be, you know, really athletic, and there's nothing that the other team can do. You know, I'm starting to watch Canisius because I've had a few days where, you know, I can focus on our own team. So I haven't started focusing on them yet, but once you do it, they're gonna do some things that'll probably like cause us problems. But these games are important because, like, Rutgers trying to get in the tournament last year, everybody kept bringing up Brown or who I don't remember who beat them, but early in the year they lost some games, and it hung over their heads the entire year. Win the games you're supposed to win, do what you're supposed to do, and these games, they can't help you, but they can definitely hurt you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You may over the course of the next 3 games also have some opportunities to get trying your hand with different rotations. Obviously, you've gotten the freshmen some looks and some playing time so far this season. What's your take on where that group is? I know it's hard to sum it all up into one bunch, but it seems like they're growing in influence, and you're being able to use them specifically for certain reasons now in games.
Yeah, and that's it's constantly evolving. I think Kanye and Evan played for longer stretches in the Illinois game. It was hard. Illinois is hard to play a big guy against. You can really only play when Dane Danger's in. Like, you can't put a big guy on Coleman Hawkins. So that handcuffed Meach and Kevin, how much they were going to be able to play. Hopefully these next few games they can get a chance to play more and play for longer stretches and kind of play through mistakes. I want to try and find a chance to get Jameel Brown more minutes. I think he can help us. And maybe that comes as the year goes on, but you don't want his first experience to be a bad one, right? Like,
right.
Throwing him into the fire. Like, sometimes not playing, it saves kids. Everybody wants to play, and everybody's good enough. He's good enough to help us. But you got to find the right environment where that experience is beneficial for him. And that's what we have to find. But it also, when those guys play, like, somebody else is not playing, right? Like, right. You understand that, like if Kanye and Jameel and Evan are in, then Andrew Funk's out, Seth Lundy's out, Jalen Pickett's out. Like, you got to find time from somebody. And last I looked, Jalen Pickett's playing like an All-American. So I'm going to have him out there as much as possible. There's only so many minutes that you can have. Every press conference I talk about math, and I'm not good at math, but there's 40 minutes in 5 spots. So there's only so much time that can go around. So, you want to play such and such more, you got to play somebody else less. And, we got some pretty good guard. Like, Jalen Pickett's playing at a high level. Seth Lundy's playing at a high level. Andrew Funk's playing at a high level. Like, taking minutes from those guys as well.
Yeah. Well, join the club on the math thing. It's not my strong suit either.
Yeah, that's why I'm coaching. I'm coaching ball. Not at state high right now, teaching geometry or something.
Yeah, it would be no good for either of us. But I could still see Jalen's numbers, and I don't want to misquote you here, so I'm going to give you another opportunity. I think after the Illinois game, you called him the best guard in the Big Ten. Tell me about this kid. I mean, I just been a huge fan of his, seeing him last year and how he kind of developed and the type of player that he's become. He feels like a real, I don't know, like a fine wine. Just I appreciate so many different things that he brings to the floor. What makes him so good, and why am I right about him?
Yeah, he just, he wants to win so bad. That's so he does whatever the team needs, and he's scoring the ball, he's passing the ball, he's rebounding the ball, he's making everybody better. At the same time, it goes unnoticed that he's usually guarding one of the best players on the other team on the other end. That I thought he was a one of the best defenders in our league last year, and I don't think he got a vote for all conference numbers in defensively, just because we don't play a style that's going to show him get a bunch of blocks or steals or whatever it may be. But like, he just wants to win, and he's doing whatever it takes. He's settling us down. He's playing big minutes. He's being a leader in timeouts and huddles and in practice, and he's earned this because of the work that he put in this summer. Like, he really wanted to show himself, to lead this group, and that's what he's doing. So I'm proud of him. I think he can continue. Like, you look at KenPom, they've got him, listed pretty high in their list of player of the year numbers and everything else. And, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he'll be recognized for that, because he's leading us to wins, and he's putting up big numbers at the same time.
Yeah, he certainly has been so far. Looking ahead, just briefly, if you will, you got this Palestra game coming up. I know you've kind of talked about how it originated, but are you looking forward to it? I mean, it's just, there's so much involved with Purdue, and that game has been very successful for Penn State traditionally over the last few years when they've had those games. What's your level of looking forward to it, and what are you expecting from that game?
I am not looking forward to it one bit. I am. All right, like, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited for us to go to Philly, play in the Palestra. I've been there. We've had shooting around at different times with the Celtics in there, but to coach a game in there is pretty cool. Kind of takes me back to my Butler days, I think, of coaching in Hinkle, which they're pretty similar looks of the building and how it's structured and everything else. And just the fans, the excitement, like, the buzz that's around it, it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool to see, but I can't. That's way too far down the line for me. I don't like. I got tunnel vision, and I'm thinking about Canisius, and then Quinnipiac. My wife's trying to figure out Christmas plans, and I'm like, this hard heads from Canisius. So, like, they deny on the wings, and like, they're going to take away this. Like, how are we going to score? We got to be able to drive here. Like, I can't think about January. So I'll get
January.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, for sure. You one more thing that, if you're willing to indulge. Well, and here I am going to try to take you off of that one track real quick. I'm always watching NIL. I'm so fascinated by the space and what's happening. Tom Izzo actually said something. I'm sure you didn't hear it, but after that game, talking about how the handshake that you guys had in game, we've discussed it, but he said something about, Mike and I, we're not coaches that are poaching each other's players through the transfer portal and NIL and enticing and that kind of stuff. What's your read? What's your read on NIL? How much of a factor is it becoming in the recruiting space? What's the feedback that you're getting out there?
Yeah, he said that because we aren't competing. I'm not competing with him. I can tell you that much. It's, I'm NIL's a topic that, it's almost like controversial, for a lot of people. Right now, like, you have to adjust to what's happening in the times. And it's something that, it's really big. It's really big in recruiting, and it's really big in player retention. We've been fortunate. I can say this. We've put together two really good classes, top 30 classes, built on all relationships. So, the first class, NIL wasn't a factor, but like, the relationships that we had with some of the players that we got in this freshman class helped us. This past class, the same exact thing. Right? Like my son's in the class. Like it doesn't get any easier than that to recruit. One of his high school or one of his AAU teammates from Indiana. Like I've been around that kid for 3 summers, 3 years. He and Braden work out with the same guy. Like that's a relationship. Kerry Booth is a relationship. Like we got guys, but we also lost guys. And like I don't think like we're ever gonna be we're not gonna be like Illinois, right? Illinois is one of the best in the league right now with what they're doing at NIL. But like we have to do something. I think that's where we can't fall behind. Because like you're going to lose out on kids. Like when everything's even, there has to be something that puts it over the top, and the relationship's not going to be that, like, unfortunately. And like they're good kids, right? Like we're not recruiting kids that are asking us, for NIL money. But when they might ask what you guys are doing or what's going on, what's happening with your team. And when we don't have anything that's, nothing, right? Like,
Right.
or like I can't speak for everybody, but I would say of 14 teams in the Big Ten, we're probably 14th, maybe 13th. So like it's just about who we want to be as a program. Like what are we willing to say is going to be our standard, right? Because I can be as good as coaches in the world, but if you don't have as good of players, like it doesn't matter. Or if you do a great job you do a great job with your development. You find a kid, you develop them, and then somebody comes in and they have something for them, right? That's kids, that's life right now, and that's what's happening. So I don't know. I'm never gonna like. I can't tell anybody what to do with their own money.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't. Like it's your own options. Like nobody's telling me what to do with my money, right? I get a chance to make my own decisions. But it's about a program. It's about what you want as a program and what you're happy with. Because if we have a little bit more, that we're offering to our guys or that we're doing for our team in NIL, that top 30 class is probably top 15 in the country. Just 1 or 2 more guys. So, like I said, it's a controversial topic, but it's what college basketball is right now. It's what's going on. So, like, it's here. So, you can not like it, and that's your prerogative. Then, can't come back and complain about like the product, of what's going on. So, like, I'm not like, like I said, I'm never going to complain. Like we need as much help as we can get. But it's your choice. It's your choice. I'm going to keep coaching. I'm going to keep trying to find good kids. I'm going to keep trying to retain the kids that we have. We're going to keep making them better. But I want to build this thing into something really good. So we just have to compete. We don't have to be at the same level. We don't have to be at the same level. Like I know what Matt Painter is doing. Like this is one of my really good friends. Like I've talked to him, and I know what they're doing. Purdue's not a like renegade program, but their support is really good. So I know what their players are getting on a yearly basis. Like, I know what some of these other schools are getting. Like we don't need to match it. We just need to have something, right? Yeah. So now that something doesn't just blow you out of the ballpark. Like a lot to nothing is hard to overcome. A lot to something, and then the relationship starts to kick in and make a little bit of ground up. So that's my 2 cents. Or
Nah, I love it.
Or
I love it because
as long as I ramble, that's my $2.
I love all of it. I think it is tremendously insightful for what's actually happening out there and how recruiting's working currently. So, Micah, that's it. I totally appreciate so much you joining us today, and we'll let you get back to it. Good luck these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you know what? I bet you gained probably 3, 4 more listeners just because I'm on here.
That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. We're getting it rolling.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
So that was pretty fun.
That was so much fun. So much fun. Micah Shrewsberry in the house. What do you think?
I thought it was first off, he gave us an amazing amount of time, so that was super awesome. Secondly, as always, he's incredibly insightful and he's incredibly honest about what's going on. And I find that very refreshing. I love listening to what he has to say about a lot of topics. And that's kind of, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with some of the things he said? We can start with NIL.
Yeah, NIL.
The thing he just talked about. We got to have something. And that's, like you got to have something to lay it out like that and say, basically what he said was, I can coach, I can develop, I can recruit, but if I don't have one of these tools, then we're not going anywhere. And that is, I think, both encouraging that, he has that level of confidence in the program and what he can build at Penn State, but also, the side of it that's holding the team back, I guess you could say it's holding them back. They're in a better position than where they were previously, right? So like the recruiting is already better, but where could it be? How quickly could he gain ground on the rest of the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, I think it just puts into perspective a couple of things. One, he acknowledged that the first class, those 5 guys that came in that are currently freshmen, it just wasn't a factor. It was NIL happened too late in the process for that to really be a huge thing. And then this most recent class, you've got these very unique situations where one is the son of a general manager of an NBA franchise. Like, they're doing pretty well. His own son, right? And then his own son's best friend, or one of his best friends, a kid who he grew up with playing AAU basketball. And so but also acknowledge there are players that they lost. There's guys that they probably may have been able to land in the recruiting class of 2023 had they been more competitive in the NIL space. And so it's not going to be like, they're not always going to have those situations moving forward. They're not always going to have those types of relationships. And so I'm just repeating what he said, but you can make up ground. You can make up ground with your relationships. You can do super strong relationship building, parents, the kid themselves, coaches, what have you. That's all good, but you can't be starting at the ground floor. And so there's another side of it though too, which is to say, hey, we're constantly talking about Penn State football. And so you've got these like different animals, right? Football is supporting financially 125 guys. It is a huge undertaking. It is a huge, massive, hippopotamus that you've got to be able to address. Basketball's not that, right? Like, you got 13 guys. You've got 15 guys on the roster. And so being able to figure out, the dollars go much further on a basketball roster from NIL support than they do necessarily for football. And so I think that's this balance that is, I think they're trying to figure out, and that I think they're trying to get under control right now.
So the part of it that I think is interesting is the idea that it's controversial. He said that a bunch of times. It's controversial. It's controversial. It's legal now. Well, so like this whole thing is legal, and it's not controversial in terms of paying players. I understand that the sentiment has a lot of inertia, and that's the huge problem that the support base behind Penn State, I think, in general, when it comes to NIL, but obviously football, and then the secondary things after that. I think you make a good point. Like, first off, how do you destigmatize NIL? And then how do you point out things like, hey, your dollars go much farther with this group than they will with a larger pool of people? What's the is it a time thing, or is it just it's going to be a sensibilities thing and it's not going to get better? That's, I think, the next question when it comes to NIL.
Yeah, I think that from a Penn State perspective, football's standing it has to come first to a certain extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a broad embrace of football, but just because it's the dominant sport. It is what it is. I mean, it's such an engine for everything else that happens at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
But how quickly can that get going? And then how quickly can, I'm not saying siphon off, but identify those who are willing and able to and are passionate about basketball, because that's it. It just matters, right? It's this constant conversation of like, does Penn State basketball have basketball fans, or does Penn State basketball have football fans who root for Penn State basketball
right
when it's convenient to do so? And we know to the people listening to this podcast, of course there are Penn State basketball fans, right? Like the audience has reflected that. It's just a matter of how do you get more of those casual fans to be invested and become true fans, of the program, and then the people that are true fans, how do you get them to invest into those endeavors?
Yeah,
because it matters. He just made it. I mean, that was more blunt than I was anticipating him being, saying 13th or 14th in the Big Ten. Yeah. Like, it's going to take more for Penn State to be competitive in that space.
So, yeah, I mean, we've plumbed that well. I think we've drilled that well pretty deep. Now it goes on.
It's important.
Yeah. But no, my point is, like, I was about to start speculating about, okay, so 2 good recruiting classes, and then does is there a cliff? Like, can he keep this up? And if not, what does that mean for the program long term? Because, and this is where it's like, I don't want to get to the next step of, okay, how viable is Penn State as a basketball program? Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy that loses of the good things that are the momentum it has? So, like, is the timeline urgent in terms of making sure not just momentum, but that you don't backslide to where you were before Micah Shrewsberry?
These are, and it applies to so much. These are stories that are being written in progress, right? After Penn State, and this counts on the floor for the outcome of this specific season, but it also is the trajectory of the program, right? They built up that Michigan State game to be so big and so important because they saw a Michigan State team that could be beat, and they were as good as, right? Like, Penn State can compete with this Michigan State team as it is. And then they knew what was on the backside of it. It was like, okay, you want to get this win so that you can lose at Illinois, and that's okay because you've gotten a split. But that's not the way it works, right? Is life goes on, and there are other things that are to be determined, other things that impact the outcome. And so now Penn State, instead of losing that second game, they won it. They beat Illinois. And so, like, any of the lost enthusiasm from losing to Michigan State, you're able to pull that back. You're able to get that back. Now Penn State's able to go into January and the resumption of the Big Ten schedule and have that enthusiasm and have that support back as long as they win these next 3 games. But it also applies to things like NIL and things like recruiting. It is like this, the perception always wavers. It's not a straight line. There's going to be ups and downs and ups and downs. But as long as you're continuing to push and invest and generally keep that upward trend, you're going to see positive results. It's just like so much is dictated by what has most recently happened.
I just got this in, so I want to make a big deal about this, Nate. This show and future shows on the BWI Daily Edition is sponsored by Collegiate Athletic Travel. So for those of you that haven't made your Rose Bowl travel plans, here's the deal. I hate traveling personally. I think it is one of the worst things that you can do to yourself. But if you can make it easy, you should do that. The easiest way, and at the price you won't find anywhere else to get to the Rose Bowl, just $895 to fly round-trip nonstop via Southwest Airlines charter flight from Harrisburg to Hollywood Burbank Airport, LA's easy in, easy out airport, departing from Harrisburg December 30th to January 3rd. Book now. Limited seats. Nate, you have some insight into this, actually. This is something that's near and dear to you, right?
Going to the Rose Bowl or Cat?
Because Collegiate, yes.
Yeah, Collegiate Athletic Travel they are a great partner. They've been a long-time partner and sponsor of Blue White Illustrated. We have traveled with them dozens of times. They're fantastic. I mean, I cannot speak more highly about them. And honestly, for that price, like if you're last minute thinking about going to the Rose Bowl, I mean, direct flight, like you literally just step onto a plane and you get off and you're there, which from central Pennsylvania is difficult to do.
Yes. As somebody who is researching flights to get my Utah alum to the Rose Bowl, you can add probably 25-30% to that, to all of what you're looking at elsewhere. So not only is it convenient that you have this awesome nonstop flight to LA from Harrisburg, but it's at an awesome price. So if you want complete details, book your reservations, athletictravel.com. That's athletictravel.com. And we'll be telling you more about them as we get close to the Rose Bowl. So they're not going anywhere. Nate, you're not going anywhere. We do have a couple more things we need to discuss from what Micah Shrewsberry said earlier here on the show. Get your opinions on some of his comments. I can spin anything was one of my favorite lines. Make this team believes they're underdogs. In terms of like coaching for basketball, I think specifically because it is such a personal game. Like you mentioned, there's not 12, 11 people on the field. There's not, some of the randomness in some other sports. Like it is very, very much about the individual, and that ability, I mean, that's kind of a secret sauce, right? To get guys motivated for a game.
Yeah, and he's got experience. He's been doing this for a long time. So when I asked him about gauging the temperature as the head coach, I mean, I guess that I was expecting to be a little bit more wiggle room, but he knows what he's doing, right? I mean, you're in a good way. You are manipulating people. You're getting them to maximize their performance, and so if he knows there are certain players that play better when they feel like they need a chip on their shoulder, that's fine. Other players play great when they're feeling good, when they're not the underdog, when they're a guy who's expected to win, who's expected to play well. So no, that didn't totally surprise me, but I mean, it is just one of his many forthcoming responses of like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's actually happening outside the walls of the building. He will present the narrative that best fits their needs in the moment.
Now, our narrative, and I think what we've discussed here, 3-point shooting, he flipped that on you. He flipped that on to talk more about the twos and playing in the paint. What were your thoughts on that particular narrative, that thread of the conversation?
I mean, to be fair, that's what the graphic was, but that was what I actually asked him, was that their field goal shooting has been the lowest in those 3 games, right? The 3 games that they've lost, their field goal, not just from 3. Obviously, the 3 is a big part of it, but just in general, making it's. We've talked about this before, but we can make this as complex as we want to. But as he said, it's just not. Like, make the bunnies, make the 2s, make the 3s, and you're going to be more competitive. And the numbers are right there. They're right in front of you that their worst shooting performances of the season have all been losses. And their best 3-point shooting percentages of the season have all been wins, absent that one anomaly in Colorado State. So, yeah, they're like, Jalen Pickett has to make shots inside, outside, what have you. But if you're going to get looks close to the basket, if Keba Jai is going to get looks close to the basket, you've got to be able to convert those. And it's been very obvious in the outcomes of games that this is how you get there for Penn State.
Last thing I've got, the young players, the conversation about wanting to get Jameel Brown on the floor a little bit more, get him more experience. What was your read on is that going to be coming up in these next 3 games, given he said these aren't guaranteed games?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, right? You've got to be able to figure out how to maximize these next 3 games without losing them, right? I mean, it's very much the conversation that we had in football in November. Is how do you develop as intentionally as you can those players that are going to be counted upon in some ways in the future. It's interesting with Jameel Brown, just because I think his path to the court, it's not that he's a bad player or that he doesn't have talent. He's got tons of talent, and behind the scenes, all the feedback is, yeah, he's really good and he's done some really good things. It's just that the path to the floor is more crowded. Right, Jalen Pickett's in front of him, Cam Winter's in front of him. Whereas Kanye Clary does some different things. He brings something different to the floor, and so that's why he's gotten a little more playing time to this point in the season. So I don't think there's anything to worry about with Jameel Brown, but it is interesting to me, the notion of Evan Mahaffey is a guy who brings something different to the floor. You can use him. Keba Jai, we already know about. We get it with him. But these are a couple of guys. Demetrius Lilly is a guy who very clearly is not there, isn't expected to be there, but is a guy who they're going to have to count on, like, a little bit, right, in spots. And so it's just a matter of continuing that trajectory. And as Shrewsberry said, like, you want to put a Jameel Brown into winning situations, right? Like, get them to feel good. Don't put all that pressure on them from the onset, and also do so while not losing games, because it's right there. It's all in front of you. You cannot afford to lose these types of games if you want to get to where you want to go.
So what do you got left? I'm out of stuff. Anything else you want to discuss?
I'm done. I thought that was a great time, and so thankful to Micah Shrewsberry for joining us on the show today. Keep listening, rate, review, YouTube.
Yeah,
and we'll brought it to YouTube.
Yes, look at that. I finally got my stuff together. We'll have him on. We'll have him on again. He's going to be regular on the show. So I already can feel it. He enjoyed his conversation with you. So you nailed it.
He really slammed me there on the intro. 3 or 4 more. We're trying. Come on.
So that will do it today for the Hoops podcast. Nate Bauer killing it today. Thanks again to Micah Shrewsberry and to Penn State basketball for giving their time today. We will be back next week. There's a game coming up this weekend, so subscribe
Sunday.
to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com so you get the in-game thread, so you can bite your nails and gnash your teeth with Nate in the thread. And of course, Nate will give you all his insight into the game and the post-game coverage. But of course, subscribe here to YouTube now. We're here. Hello, officially, you can see us. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, download, rate, review, subscribe, all that great stuff. We'll be back with the Penn State Hoops Show.